because I will probably be. I have a hearing condition sometimes. I'm
Yeah,
like, okay.
I'm telling them to like raise their voices because also the mic.
They're either doing, or
Exactly.
they should.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So. It's going to be a lecture, but Haidar is going to help me with people because he knows this. I will want them to do some stuff, upload something to their computer, download something to their computer. Complete the base of risks. There will be some risks. But besides that, it's all about them downloading something to their computer.
During the workshop, we have to connect the mic.
Sometimes it might be just say about that.
صارفين نقعد لأن حيبلش الوركشوب.
Hello. I think that we may start now because we have already been a little bit 5 minutes late. So it will be a compact workshop. I'm not going to force you to do something that is really advanced, but I will just make sure that people who have been part of MD Lab has intermediate cybersecurity protocols in their computers in order not to let any kind of cookie or something like that to access to their computers or digital devices. As it is going to be a workshop, I need some active participation. By active participation, I don't say that I need comments. More than it, I need you to download some things to your computers, use them on your computers. So it is the activity that I request from you. So there are some basic things about cybersecurity. Information is power, and the weakest link in a cyberspace is the one that matters the most, because most of the agencies or most of the people would like to know what is the weakest place before attacking us. The simpler systems are most of the time safer. Don't think that coding is complicated and I should code so nobody can steal something from me. It is all about experience, simplicity, and the way that you use it. And more expensive isn't more secure. Like the question about VPN in the previous session, the most expensive VPN service does not have to be the best and the most secure and the most transparent one. So never pay a lot for security in circumstances that you don't need. So it is okay to trust someone, but think who you are trusting in terms of your cybersecurity and why. And you need to have reasonable expectations in terms of cybersecurity. So in order to, you have to keep yourself informed and updated. Updates are important. How many of you have their computers non-updated for a year, for a month? You have to update. These updates, some people don't update their computers or mobile phones saying that, okay, they are just doing it in order to kill our battery. No. Most of the time, these companies, yeah, I agree that most of these companies are evils. But most of the time, they are doing these updates in order to create a kind of security wall for you. Because they do this when there is a kind of leak in the system. Apple had leaks, Windows had leaks, Linux had leaks. All these softwares, whether they are commercial or not, they had some leaks. They had some weaknesses. That's why you should update your computers. Even before, now it would be hard probably, but when you go home, please update your computer. Please update your mobile phone, okay? Let's start with that. And security is an issue of proactivity. Security is not something that you look for when you got hacked. So everybody gets hacked these times, right? Presidents, prime ministers, journalists, famous people. You know, too many people have Instagram accounts or iCloud accounts have been hacked. Now we see nude pictures of famous people everywhere, right, on web, because their clouds are hacked. So today we are going to try to make sure that your private information is not leaked. We will make sure that you are not hacked. Because you're journalists or you're working on journalism area, you need to be as informed or as qualified as possible in terms of securing your sources, your information, and your communication practices. So let's start with some key things. Control where the information is shared and sent. First of all, some kind of information can be sent in specific platforms. For instance, if it's an encrypted platform, you can send any kind of information. But you cannot send an information about yourself on a public chat room that everybody has access to, right? So all you do without cybersecurity measures is doing that. For instance, if you say something, for instance, nasty to your partner, assume that doing it in the most crowded street on earth. It is no difference between saying this in the most crowded street on earth and saying it on platforms that are not encrypted, that are not safe. So you need to review access to your passwords. You need to change your passwords. I'm going to show today you how you should create passwords, how to create secure passwords. And international communication, these kind of technologies in some parts of the world can themselves be reason of arrest. So you are using Tor, you're a terrorist. So you are using privacy badger, what kind of person you are? So you are using ad blocker, you are against journalism. So these kind of things, yeah, I'm just making up. But in the end, these kind of cybersecurity measures that people use can be used against them. So that is important, not to use the things that you don't need. It's important to know your needs. That's why you need to assess the risks. You need to evaluate the risks first in order to understand what you really need. So consider two sayings. Even wolves have ears and loose lips sink ships. So it's like that. You just say something to your friend and he or she tells to another. But in web, it's exactly like that. All the information that you produce is completely redistributed, reproduced, and taken away from you. So how to provide how to provide secure communication of our messages? How to provide security for our data? So let's start with risk assessment of the information that we have in our computers. Let's first start identifying our valuable assets. What are the valuable assets of ours? Our contact list, right? People in our contact list, who are they? Prime ministers, ministers, activists, their telephone numbers, private information about them. Research data, for instance, as a journalist or as an academic, you can have a big research data that you're responsible of, because ethically you cannot release your research data in many issues. And for academics, for instance, in many in-depth interviews with activists, most of them prefer to stay anonymized. And if the government comes and tries to take away the information from you and you have their open names or your communication records with these exact activists, you will be an intelligence officer more than an academic or a journalist. So what else? Interview notes, audiovisual files, all of them are valuable assets that you need to secure from outer sources. So what threatens your assets? And why do you have them in your digital device? The best part of digital security is the part that whether is it worth keeping or not. If something is not worth keeping in your computer, don't keep it. Why? Do you keep the newspaper that you read 1 year ago in your house? I think no. So it's just like that. The more data that you keep in your computer and you do not erase in the secure way that we are going to learn today, the more you're at risk because someone can trace it. So you also have to assess when and where the threats are likely to hit. So in my house, it is hard for them to hit me because I have good protocols on my modem, etc. But for instance, when I'm in Cafe Hamra or when I'm in Paul here, yeah, I'm under great risk, especially on Paul. Yesterday I was in Paul and I was looking at some of the stuff, and it was possible for me to track all the activities of the people who were at the same time there, eating, doing something. And if they weren't using encrypted messaging apps, I would have been able to read all the messages that they sent to their girlfriends and boyfriends. Everything. So today we are going to try to avoid this kind of problems because we are working in some risky industries. And actually, none of us have to give away such an information. So let's start thinking by layers of security. Let's start with our neighbors. Let's start, for instance, assume that you are a journalist working in Hamra in a kind of newsroom that's created there. Start with the neighborhood. Are your windows open for surveillance? Is it a risk? While you are using your computer and there is a window just behind you, is it a risk? That's the first question. Do you think? I think it's a big risk. There are too many activists that I know who are even reading their emails under the blanket. I know that it can seem a kind of conspirational and a little bit paranoid, but it's true. And let's look outside the office. Even in the offices, outside the office, there are security layers, right? In most of the parts of the world. But sometimes people just come into your office. Somebody's, I don't know, relative, friend, and they will have physical access to the area that you work in. Then, what about the front door? Yeah, people just come in. If you don't have a secretary, if you don't have someone, for instance, people who are working in logistics industry, they come into our office every day. Can you make sure that one of them is not an intelligence agency worker? You can't. So then let's start with your desk. Journalists have really confusing desks. I saw them many times, and I'm happy that there are desktops or these digital technologies right now. Otherwise, every day, another source of a journalist would be exposed. We are kind of working in really complicated ways. So you need to be careful about your desk. What kind of documents are there? You need to destroy everything that you have in analog format or hard copy format. And let's come to our digital space that we are going to talk about today through many apps. It's going to be complicated. And your human network, which is the most essential one. Never trust anyone. That's for sure. You can only trust one person at most. Why one person? Because sometimes, if you are arrested or something like that happens, there should be someone who can keep on working on the files that you worked on before. So it's a kind of thing of mutual trust, but in the end, it is still risky. So let's start after the risk assessment. Let's go some places that questions. Who could your adversaries or potential attackers be? Yeah, governments, our rivals, intelligence agencies, people who would like to steal money from us, people who would like to get our credit card details, and what tools might they use. It is a scary part. Even I can have access to tools, and you will all have access to tools that you can hack somebody's Wi-Fi password and all the connection details of everyone that you see in this room. How many of them are connected to Facebook now? How many of them are messaging through WhatsApp? Maybe you cannot see the details of the communication if they are encrypted, but you will at least know. For instance, your boss is going to know that you are now connected to, for instance, BuzzFeed.com and reading a story about cats. It is possible. But it is not only about that when it comes to cybersecurity, because risky information is something different. So what risks could arise for you and those you communicate or work with from a targeted attack? So here is one of the best examples from yesterday. If the Fonseca email wasn't hacked, we wouldn't have been aware about one of the biggest financial scandals of the earth. Many people, including people from royal family, have been affected. So not only your accounts of the people that you work with are important. Most of the companies around the world don't work with the companies which don't have cybersecurity education or cybersecurity protocols right now. Because capitalists know that they need some certain protocols to work on. So what risks can be eliminated and how? It is the most crucial question. You cannot eliminate all the risks. You cannot eliminate the risk that the police is suddenly going to come to your building or apartment and they're going to arrest you before you destroy your hard drive. But you can at least avoid them remotely surveying you. Today it will be mostly about remote surveillance, but there will be some part about keeping your hardware secure as well. So there are some defense strategies that we're going to talk about and how you're going to use them. So, how to protect your system? First of all, hardware risks. What are they? They can be stolen, theft. They can be damaged. They can be physically captured. Someone may provide a remote attack. Have you ever heard this hacking attack that burns the screen driver of your computer, graphic driver of your computer? It was really common 2 years ago. You were just opening a file, and it was creating too many commands on your computer that your displaying graphic card was getting burned. It was just a remote attack. So theft. Now, I think most of the people here use where is my MacBook and this kind of applications. I really think that these kind of things are important, especially if you are living in a non-secure environment, but yeah, you can use them. So, what about your operation systems? I see many people using Mac. I see some people using Windows. Is there any Linux or this kind of software used around here? Linux alternatives? Debian? No. So you should, I guess, be able to talk about them. And also, there are some programs that connects the information or the connection between the program, and these are also important. And there will be applications that we will be talking about. So let's start with malwares. What is malware? Mal means bad. We know softwares. These are the programs that we use. Malwares are the programs with bad intention in your computer that are used either to steal information from your computers or track you. So they include viruses, trojans, ransomware, spyware attacks, adwares, and all other types of attacks. They are designed to disrupt or damage our computer systems or use our resources for financial gain. You know, everybody, most of the people use Apple because they think that it's safe, right? Do you know that most of the malwares today are being produced in order to get data from Mac? Because Mac users are more wealthy. It is obvious because it's really expensive computer. So if it is an expensive computer, yeah, I will steal from you. It's like governments. So I'm here. There are some anti-malware softwares that I would like you to download. You will all have access to the presentation afterwards, but you should use them. You should activate them, and they should always be active in your computer. Some people do such stuff after this kind of cybersecurity workshops. They just download malware bytes during the workshop, and afterwards they think that it is slowing their computer, and they erase it. So, which means that afterwards a malware can easily be infecting your computer. And antivirus. How many people here use antivirus? Okay, it's like 25% of the total population, 30%. It is too few. I can't believe that you don't use any antivirus thing. How can you be so secure about your preferences? So do you think that your computer is going to work all the time? You will be secure? I really think that you should use an antivirus software. Do you have a question? So can you?
Thank you. Okay, I am also using an antivirus program, but I know so many people who say it's not necessary. There are so many people who think it doesn't matter, it's not very useful because viruses update all the time. Okay, programs do also, but it's not very secure to rely only on your antivirus system. And can you explain why is that opinion? Thank you.
You are right. Viruses always are updated, but you don't get infected by viruses constantly. You have to make a mistake to be infected by a virus. So until you make that mistake, most of the time, these virus scanners detect the mistake or detect the virus malware, and they update themselves accordingly. Updating is the keyword here. If you let these virus scanners update themselves regularly, so it will be easier. So I am not saying that it is going to provide full security, but I can at least say that it reduces the risk like 50%. And especially malwares, because it is like, it says you if something gets into computer in the exact moment that it gets into your computer. So you have to have both anti-malware and antivirus software in your computer. So that's my opinion. But do I use it? Yeah, I use it. Of course.
Is the Windows Defender any good, or should we get something else?
No. You have to get something extra. Windows Defender is only about Windows core files and all other stuff, a firewall constructed by Windows. So I think that you should need something extra. You will need. So how we are going to protect our data? There are some risks. You can lose your data. Your data might be corrupted, which means that the files can become unreadable. Someone can intercept your data so you cannot access it anymore. It can be stolen. And also someone can recover the data that you deleted from your computer. We are going to return how to get it back or how to delete it in an irreversible way. And you have to know how to de-anonymize. Or you have to know that it's a risk that people can de-anonymize or compromise metadata that we are going to explain later. So what you should do, first of all, you need to authenticate securely. How many of you don't have passwords in the introduction or I'm saying entry screen of their computers? Once you open your computer, do you have a password? Yes. Yeah, you should. That's the first layer of security. It is not the eternal one. It is not going to provide full security, but in the end, it is necessary. And how many of you have backup? Do you have a USB? Is it encrypted, or is it just a USB that you use it needs to be encrypted. So do you have an external hard drive? Most of the people have, because if you are working with videos essentially. Do you have cloud accounts? Which I assume that most of you use. Yeah. So you have to securely share. That we are going to learn encrypted emails, file sharing services. But you can't use Dropbox that I used for sharing some of the files with you, and Google Drive for everything. But you can use some deleting softwares. So CCleaner, you see. You all should have CCleaner in your computers right now. Because assume that you are working on a really risky file. And after you worked on it, and you don't feel that you have a kind of good operation system, you just delete it, and you just go to the CCleaner and remove the cookies or remove the traces that it left behind. So basically, our hard drives are physical things. We can never actually delete a file from our computer. We just rewrite it. So when you send something to your trash bin, actually you don't clean it. You just make it invisible in your software or in your operation system. If you use your CCleaner, what you do is you rewrite the file. You rewrite something over it so the file is disrupted and non-recoverable. That is why, for instance, most of the people here use Windows, for instance, and you just add to the trash bin and you say that it's empty the trash bin, right? It's not enough. I can get anything from your computers if that is the way that you try to keep your files secure. So you should start with CCleaner. Another thing. Do you know that a USB can function as an operation system? So my first suggestion to journalists here, I will send a kind of link. It should be another course about that. How to create USBs that can operate as operation systems, how you can encrypt them, and all other stuff. But do you see the name here? Tails. Tails is a really simple operation system. It's a Debian-based system, and you can use it in an internet cafe that you go, for instance, or in any place that you go. Because your general hard drive that you use all the time is possibly tracked by the government or your host. But systems like Tails, you just put it into your PC and you restart your PC. Okay? And once you try to restart your PC, it's going to ask you, would you like to go with the Windows or Tails? Go with Tails and do your journalistic work there. If it is a delicate file, it's a file that you don't want anyone to reach. Because our classical systems, classical operation systems, they are based on keeping your data. But these kind of USB-based systems are based on keeping your data, not keeping your data, letting you work on things and just finishing it in the most secure way possible. These kind of things, for instance, Tails, it has its own file sharing protocols, and you have to use them as well. So I will send you some trailers. Besides this presentation, I will create a list of trailers that you can use. Sorry, gentlemen, let me get my headphone. Yeah, microphone. Okay. I can hear you, right?
Okay.
Yeah, just
المعلومات المقدمة هامة جدا للغاية، لكن في ظل عملنا كصحفيين الالتفات إلى مثل هذه المعالجات في التعاطي مع الأمور ستضيع وقتا كثيرا من وقتنا. فإذا لم تكن المعلومة اللي بشتغل.
Give me a moment. I can't get. Which channel are we in? 3? So I can't hear, right? Now I can. Yeah. Can you tell it again? Sorry.
Repeat the question. أنا كنت بتكلم إنه المعلومات هذه مفيدة جدا لكل صحفي ولكل مستخدم للحاسوب، لكن هذه المعلومات إذا أردت أن أطبقها ستضيع من وقتي الكثير، وعليه يعني عند استخدام مثل هذه البيانات أو إني أذهب إلى مشغل آخر حتى أعمل مادة صحفية ستضيع الوقت وليس لدي الوقت. أيضا الأنظمة تختلف. النظام اللي بنشتغل عليه ويندوز مثلا، عندما سأشتغل على نظام آخر لن أتمكن من استخدام الوورد أو الصور أو الفوتوشوب إلى آخره. هذا سيجعل أمامي عائق للاستخدام. أيضا بالنسبة للاستخدامات الكثيرة للبرامج ستضيعنا إحنا كصحفيين، ستضيعنا فيما لا طائل فيه. أنا أستطيع أن أخذ المعلومات المهمة على USB أو اكسترنال وأضع تشفير له ويكفي ذلك في الوقت الحالي. أما إذا كنا في مؤسسات ضخمة ونريد أن نحمي بياناتنا فيمكن استخدام مثل هذه التقنيات.
Of course, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it might sound like it's lose of time. But what I suggest you is not making these things that I talk about your alternatives. They should be your regularities. You should use tails while you are working on a file all the time. You should use these kind of malware or antivirus softwares or specific browsers or search engines that I'm going to mention today all the time. Because cybersecurity for a journalist is an ethical thing. If you don't provide security for your sources, no matter what subject is, no matter who they are, it means that it will create great problems for you in the end, in ethical and other ways. Yes, these both of actually. These work on them. Tails works on Mac, all Debian, and because they're operation systems based on Intel technologies most of the time, and PCs and Macs have completely the same understanding. So if you, it doesn't matter. Only in Chromebook, if you use a Chromebook, probably you won't be able to use an outsider or external operation system for your computer. So, and with your question again, I think that if you are working on delicate files, if you're an investigative reporter, I would definitely recommend you to work in the way that they are proposed. And also, the tools that I'm going to suggest you today, the only difference between them and Google or other big mainstream services is that their names are not Google. Their names are not Facebook. That's the only difference. And they are now using DuckDuckGo and all other browsers. They are only messaging through Signal. They are not using Telegram or this kind of lame softwares like Viber and all other stuff. They are only using encrypted ones. Even the politicians in Turkey are using Signal rather than WhatsApp because they know that it's risky. So I think that you should also be aware. But it also, I know that Google is more user-friendly. I know that it's easier. I know that working on Microsoft Word is classy and good. I also work on Microsoft Word on this computer, but I never work on delicate information in this computer. So it's a preference thing. So let's start with authentication. So how do we log into your accounts? I think you all have passwords. How many of you use the same password for everything? So quit it. You have to have different passwords for every other service that you use. Why? Because just a week ago, there was a scandal. It's not a scandal, it's a scam mail actually. It was saying people that we now have your password and we have seen you watching naughty content and we have taken a snapshot of you while watching porn. So they give you their Bitcoin vaults URL or number, and they say you that you have to invest or you have to give them a certain amount of money. They sent it to me as well because they found a password that I used to use in 2008 in a non-encrypted forum which has been disclosed afterwards. So it is so easy. They didn't have anything on me. They didn't even know my name. They just knew my password that I used before and email address that they could attach to it somehow that I have been using for many years. So they just tried to scam me, and many people spent a lot of money on these scammers. They transferred a lot of Bitcoin money to these people because they were afraid that they were caught watching porn, masturbating, or something like that. So it is really common. So you should be aware that one password is not the choice. You have to have as many passwords as possible, and I'm going to show you how to create secure passwords, but as many passwords as possible for different things. And do you have authentication services? How many of you have two-factor authentication for Google, Twitter, Facebook? You should now, right now, set up two-factor authentication to your Twitter, Google, and Facebook accounts. Tomorrow might be too late. Why? There are some certain things. First of all, if you don't have two-factor authentication for your social media accounts, once you click on a link, they can get the control of your Twitter, Facebook, or Google accounts in a second, in a multi-second, in a millisecond, okay? So never fall into this trap. You have a question, so.
It's more of a comment about the two-factor authentication. I want to mention that people need to be aware what's going to happen if you set it up, because so many times it's just inconvenient. It's very useful, and I have it myself for some of my accounts, but it might lead to you blocking yourself out of your account many times.
If you are traveling a lot, for instance, from country to country, it can be problematic. Because, for instance, Twitter, let me define what is two-factor authentication. For instance, I logged out of my Twitter account while I was leaving Norway. And I came here, I entered my Twitter password, and Twitter sends me an SMS to prove that through my phone I am exactly the person that should use this account, okay? So in some countries, Twitter, Facebook, and Google have some problems with the telecommunication providers that send these SMS or this kind of correcting or authentication messages, so people can have problems. There has been times, I think in Bosnia-Herzegovina, I had such a problem. I was away from my all Google accounts for 3 or 4 days. Then I somehow found the alternative login code Google provided when I activated two-step factor authentication. So don't forget, two-step factor authentication does not mean that two-step authentication does not mean that you will only have a chance to authenticate yourself through your SMS or iPhone or something like that. It gives you some alternatives, some code that you can put with you, that you can keep with you, and some other alternatives as well. And here is some other thing, which is biometrics. How many of you use biometrics? Yeah, I mean that your fingerprints, your eyes, yeah. I don't know if you read these technology portals a lot. There was a story, I think it was an Independent, about a woman who made her boyfriend's fingerprints being read while he was sleeping, and she read all the interesting things that he had written to other women. So it's possible. Biometrics is kind of tricky issue because people can easily use your image in some of the technologies in order to mislead your phone. In my opinion, if you have good security measures in your computer, if you don't have data that is vulnerable, biometrics is something bad. But once you are into the biometrics database, through your face, through your fingerprints, you yourself intentionally get into a big empire of surveillance. Yes. Another.
So, okay, so I have a question now regarding the, every time we're installing an application or we're trying to sign up for a website, even the Gmail or whatever, so they ask me to accept for this application to have an access to my data,
yeah.
Even if like I'm trying to make it so secured, and if I don't agree with that, so they don't give me an access to this application.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking about how secured is that, because we're trying to secure our information. At the same time, we cannot give up these applications where we need them to use them, and they require us to have an access to our photos, videos, the contacts list, and like everything. So what do you think about that?
The best phone is the phone with the least applications in terms of cybersecurity approach. You know, there is mobile.twitter.com, mobile.facebook.com. Use these, especially these social networks, through their mobile web addresses. You don't need their classical applications, because if you use their applications, it means that I've shown it in the previous presentation. You are giving them everything. If I were you, if you have a chance to use them based on a URL, I would definitely use that. I would definitely use URL-based services of these apps. But if there is no alternative, the only way, like for instance in Instagram, in Snapchat, you have no alternative. I don't know. If you have delicate information, if you feel that surveillance is bad, you shouldn't use. I don't use Instagram. I don't know. I don't think that I'm missing a lot. I don't have Facebook app. So, another question.
But for journalists, like sometimes we use social media. Like for me, I deactivated my Facebook for almost a year, and for security issues.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it reveals, and every morning I wake up and I find like a new feature in Facebook that reveals my information. So I felt like insecure. But I cannot give up all the social media, and I'm a journalist. So like for example, we are in such an event and we take pictures and we want to talk about the event and the media literacy and all of that. So for our job, specifically for journalists or media professionals, we use social media and to keep us updated with we cannot be old-fashioned and just printed media. You know, like it's all about social media now.
First of all, you don't need to have your telephone all the time connected to the social media, social networks. Once you want to be connected to the social networks for journalistic purposes, use your computer, because I'm going to show you some specific things that you can use today to not let Facebook discover everything in the other tabs open on your computer at the same time. It's going to limit Facebook's all activities in the exact same tab, but we cannot do it in Safari browser yet. There are some browsers for mobile that they can do. But in the end, you need to be a little bit careful about your mobile phone use. You have to use social networks as least as possible, even for journalistic purposes on social media. Because once they are in your computer, they get everything, even if you delete it. You have a question as well.
What she was talking about regarding like these apps that you need to have, but you don't want people to have access to your information. So I was looking at alternatives a few months ago on how to solve this issue, and one of the best suggestions was using two phones. and the second phone be a specific Android phone that you can have access to its source, like some Chinese phones like OnePlus or M phone, in which you can always have access to the information it shares. And these phones are very cheap, by the way, but they provide you with the best security. Like the OnePlus is $200.
Yeah.
But its RAM is 5 gigabytes or 6 gigabytes of RAM.
And so it's most of the time it's better than Apple products.
It's better than iPhone. So
yeah, but I have a kind of suspicion there. They're Chinese. So I don't mean that it is cheap. I don't mean that it's bad. I mean that China government, you know, most of the governments do not let their officials to use Chinese products for their services. They don't let them to be used in their official departments. So there are some places in the world that you cannot get into with anything Chinese, because many people believe that they're used for intelligence purposes. Sorry? Huawei and many other brands. There are too many. Huawei is not banned in the state. It is banned, I think it's banned in some official places, not as a whole. But it is possible. For instance, yesterday, Turkish president was denouncing iPhone. It's not for security purposes, but in that he was. The governments do this kind of stuff, but in terms of our use, the thing that you said is really important. Yeah, you can have two phones, but I don't think that journalists all around the world are that rich. So it can be a problem. Yeah, cheap phones, but cheap phones are not might not be secure as well. The best one, I think, is if you are good enough, you can set up your own operation system on your telephone, a kind of own Debian type Android system. But it is really complicated and advanced thing. So we are just trying to use it in the intermediate way. It's a kind of intermediate cybersecurity course. So I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. So let's keep on. So here are the biometric authentication debate that we have already done. They are not private. Biometrics are hackable. Biometrics hacks may have greater consequences. Like, for instance, if they have your biometrics, they can buy a really expensive app. Or if you use, for instance, Apple Pay, and you approve the payments with biometrics, they can steal a lot of money from you. That's why if you use Apple Pay, for instance, in your iPhones, I would definitely recommend you not to use biometrics. It's problematic. You have other questions? Okay.
So if they're gonna steal my biometrics, like if they're gonna steal my fingerprint, they might as well steal the code I'm using. So why is biometrics less secure than just a code?
It's possible that you don't say your code to people, but it's possible that they force you to push your finger on it. So I'm thinking about the physical, but there is a good way over here. So you know, in Apple, we have some preferences in terms of our payment methods. I think that most of the people here have one or two or more bank accounts, right? So you can collect your payments to a digital or a cyber account that you created just for these purposes, and you can have your own account, which is not connected directly to your phone. That is the best way, because you can deposit money on your digital account whenever you need. So that's how you can avoid this kind of scams that can create some financial damage for you in the end. That's the only way, in my opinion. So let's go to passwords. You can lose your passwords. You can overwrite, someone can overwrite your passwords by backdoors. Someone can hack you. Some people know how to hack passwords, and there are some keyloggers. So the first thing is, there are too many rumors. Many people say that you should have a password which has more than 16 characters. Have you ever heard that? It's true, because the longer the password is, yeah, the harder it is to hack it. But some platforms don't let you use passwords which are kind of longer than 12 characters, for instance. Then what are you going to do? But let me tell you the mentality behind this understanding of password creation. If it is 16 characters, the number of, how many of you, I don't know how much you are interested in mathematics or something like that, but assume that you multiply 10 for 16 times. So it will like billion, trillion. So they need to, there will be 100 million possibilities of passwords, and including letters, it will be like, I don't know, it will be billions, trillions.
Facebook has around not like 1,000 billion possibilities.
Yeah.
And that's after they start allowing the use of.
Okay, I'm going to say Facebook allows 1,000 trillions possibilities. One of the people from the audience said that, and it is true. So the more characters that you have, the better chance you have from getting rid of automated password hackings. But here comes another thing. How many people have their birth dates in their passwords here? 1, 2. Okay, it's good. How many people have their first names in their passwords? Okay, it's a few. It's good. It's good. How many people have series of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4 in their passwords? There is another one. You are all vulnerable. You are all ideal targets. Have phone numbers as passwords. How many of you have their cats or dogs' names as their passwords? It's also very common. We call it social and reverse engineering. People just get into your Facebook account. They try to understand the important things in your life. And they try to generate passwords accordingly. Today we are lucky. Facebook, Twitter, and all these kind of big companies enabled some security protocols. For instance, if I enter my passwords wrong more than 3 times, my other devices connected to Apple or Google get a warning saying that there is a suspicious activity that's taking place in Beirut, Canada, or somewhere like that. So it is good in many ways, but we are not using Google, Facebook, Twitter all the time with your passwords. There are some really underdeveloped websites that we use, and suspicious activities are not reported. So that's why while creating a password, you can use some different methods. Of course, capital letters help. Capital letters and normal letters, okay? Of course, numbers help. Of course, symbols like exclamation marks or some other things, they also help. But you need to have something meaningless. For instance, I don't know, just find a song that you like and just reverse its letters. Or for instance, I couldn't find the song, it's really shame, but hit me baby one more time, for instance. One, baby, hit, time, the exclamation marks, etc., etc. You can use this as a password. It's really easy. You can also have some random password, XP9, WH, 1, 2, 3, exclamation mark, star. It's also possible. So the best way is trying to depersonalize it, non-personalize it as much as possible. Okay, 2 questions. First of all, her, then you. 3 questions. Okay. So let's start. Yeah. Anyone can start.
Is it safe or useful to use a password manager, or is it unsafe?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. KeePass and LastPass. That's I'm going to I'd suggest. Yeah, you should use that, but I'm not using because I created my own algorithm for my passwords, and I'm using that. So it's like you can use, but she's mentioning there are some plugins or add-ons that people use in order not to forget their passwords. And it encrypts your passwords and it lets you use them whenever you are connected to this website. This is what you mentioned. LastPass, key pass 6, etc. These are good. But once the person who hacks your computer or who have access to your computer knows the main password that he or she can use to get into the accounts, he will or she will get access to everything. That's why I don't use it. And I don't recommend you to use it, because most of the people, in order not to forget it, give the most lame password to their LastPass or KeyPass accounts. So it's problematic. So
yeah, I have a very good system, I think, of remembering passwords. You should, at least I use it like this. I create a sentence that I know and I take the first letters. In between I put some signs, and that's how I never forget them. And it's a sentence that means something to you, but the password itself is just letters and numbers.
Definitely, it is like generated sentences that actually don't mean anything. It is better to have sentences or phrases in your password. It is easy to remember, but especially if it is meaningless, it's much better. Yeah, it's a good way. But you should still use letters and characters.
You said not to use the same password, but the same words and numbers, but in different variations. Yeah. Like, and I use 3 types of passwords. They're all the same word and same numbers, but different variations of them. Yeah. Like one word and one word, 3 words that are personalized to me, but they're not personal information. Like they're like titles of books and titles of video game characters, yeah. And I just use number variations, but they're kind of the same password.
Yeah, but their terms are different, right?
Like, let's use, for example, 12 and 14 and Fire Song. Like okay. Fire Song 14, 12.
So it is reasonable that you use that form, because if someone doesn't do reverse engineering or socially construct your password, it is secure. Yeah, but if it is a random attack, it is not secure when it is socially constructed attack. But it is secure when it is a random attack. It just tries all the passwords all the time. So if I were you, I would keep on using that. It's a kind of algorithm that you use. But if I were you, for instance, if you are a fan of Lord of the Rings, you can do the exact same thing. 1, 2, 3, Aragon, 9,
I
8,
do use
7.
a system similar.
These can work. These can work. Let's keep on. Any question? So we are a little bit late. So, now open your browsers if it's possible. And either you are using Chrome or Firefox. I would like all you to go to your add-ons, or you write this on Google, and download HTTPS everywhere to your computers as soon as possible. Why? HTTPS everywhere. Have you ever heard what is HTTPS? For instance, once you are connected to the Google or Twitter, yes, hypertext transfer protocol secure. Twitter is HTTPS twitter.com. Facebook is HTTPS. Google is HTTPS. But most of the newspapers are not HTTPS today. Even I think the website of LAU doesn't use HTTPS protocol. And which means that it is problematic. Why? Because once you are in an HTTPS environment, people tracking you can easily see what you are doing in that website, which image that you are viewing at exact moment, what are you reading, what have you written. For instance, if you write your password on a non-HTTPS website, I, as a kind of rookie lamer who would like to pose as a hacker, I can easily see your passwords. So let's start with HTTPS everywhere. HTTPS everywhere makes sure that you go to the HTTPS versions, so secure versions of the websites that you want to visit. And once you go to a non-secure website or a website that is faking another website, for instance, there are too many websites which are behaving as Twitter or Facebook to steal your information. And if you have HTTPS everywhere, once you click on this website, it is not going to let you enter this website. It's going to say that this page is insecure. So Have you downloaded HTTPS everywhere? Okay, let's keep on. If, for instance, sometimes from Twitter, you get a link from someone or through Facebook. Do you get it? So here are two websites, virustotal.com and urlvoid.com. Just enter these websites first and copy the URL. Somebody, a source or a friend wants you to visit. Copy it and paste it into this website, and it is going to scan if these websites are scams or they have malwares in it. Many journalists lose their accounts because they are clicking on the URLs coming from their friends whose accounts were actually hacked. So you need to use either this virustotal.com or urlvoid.com. So HTTPS everywhere is not enough by itself. So, how many of you use Firefox? I am a Firefox user as well, and they have a really good add-on called Facebook Container. I mentioned Facebook a lot today, and what Facebook does is, for instance, when I'm in Facebook, if I am also using another website, or if I am also reading Guardian or any kind of newspaper, Facebook tracks all the other tabs on your browser, what they are doing. This Facebook Container, the app, enables you to limit your Facebook's activity on the exact tab it's working on. It doesn't let Facebook to reach other tabs in your browser. Okay? So you need to make sure that you have Facebook Container in your Firefox. And then comes cookie auto-delete. Do you know what is cookie? It is like, yeah, you of course, but cookie is the trace that you leave behind in every website. For instance, you went to a website, you are online shopping, and you looked for Nike sports shoes, for instance, 3 days ago. And 3 days afterwards, you go to the exact same website, and the first thing that he suggests you to buy is these Nike shoes. So it is like, wow, how do they remember me? All the internet is based on them remembering you. It is cookies that you leave behind. So you need to have cookie auto-delete or this kind of thing, add-ons. There are too many cookie deleters in either Google Chrome, Firefox that you can use. But I will show something that is not going to bring any. And bloody Vikings. How many of you are sick of giving your email addresses to everywhere just in order to look at something? There are some really lame forums that they are not worth giving real information, right? This application, this add-on that you can use on your browsers, which is Bloody Vikings, it creates some fake emails for you to log into the places that you are going to enter only for once. So it's like fake email addresses that you can use just to browse somewhere. So, and here is Ghostery. Ghostery is another thing. It is both an ad blocker. I think you all know ad blockers. It is ads coming from around, you block it. But this Ghostery is really good because it enables you to block ads and also block all the tracking mechanisms like Google Analytics, Yandex Metrics, and all other stuff at the same time. And here is Firefox multi-account containers, which lets you keep parts of your online life separated into color-coded tabs that preserve your privacy. It's wonderful. So you can have multiple lives over there. It's not like you can have a mistresses or something like that, but I mean that there is a part that you can use Facebook, Google, Twitter, and this kind of surveying mechanisms. And there must be another tab or multiple tabs that you use for working on delicate files. So because, you know, governments are using Facebook data, for instance, and if you are working on a kind of anarchist organization in your country, you don't want Facebook to know that, because if Facebook knows that, government knows that. But if you have such a kind of multiple container, you can divide your online activity into these multiple tabs, and you can preserve some online privacy. Let's keep on. Public Wi-Fi. I will say one thing. Avoid it as long as you can. You shouldn't connect from public Wi-Fi. So we are in this room now, and we all have the same password and username. It is risky, okay? So if you are using a public Wi-Fi, never connect into your bank account. Never connect into a non-HTTPS website. That's why you need to have HTTPS everywhere. Okay? Our time is limited. That's why I'm trying to avoid most stuff. And try to use VPN as much as possible, especially in public Wi-Fi. And man-in-the-middle attack. It is one of the most known attack types in cybersecurity area. It is like, we all have modems in our houses, right? And they are named like XW or Sarphan's modem. So my computer can act like Sarphan's modem. And as our devices are arranged to automatically connect to specific names of Wi-Fi's, it just connects to your computer, connects exactly to my computer. So, for instance, we are all here, and I create a modem by my computer, which is called LAU guest. So now you are all connecting to my computer, and you are giving away everything that you have to me. If your connections are not encrypted. It is so easy. You just have to have Kali Linux. Kali Linux is a Debian platform. It's an operation system. And within it, it has too many forensic tools and digital attack and digital security tools, which comes ready. It's like 2.6 gigabytes in size. You just have to burn a Kali Linux to a DVD and reboot your computer. And once you open it, Kali Linux is a kind of ready-to-hack set. So it is available to everyone. It is available to a 16-year-old child. It's available to 12-year-old child. It's available to a 30-year-old terrorist, to everyone.
But aren't these programs trackable? Like, because they're ready-made packages for hacking,
Yeah, it is trackable for governments, but is it trackable for people who are using public Wi-Fi, drinking their cappuccinos and frappuccinos? No, it's not.
like back in high school, there was a phone app that like some students would. Back in high school, there was a phone like these joke kind of hacking apps. You could use APK style with open source code, and we'd use them just for the fun of it. Yeah, but like you. Is it the same like methodology? Like
No.
they just use like this app would just allow you to send pop-ups to the other people's phones?
No, it's not that. It's not that. It is completely about the system that is going not in the surface of your computer. It's all about the connection. It's all about the metadata. It's all about other things that you can't have access to normally. So I know the things that you mentioned. They are really visible, and you can understand that they are scam if you are not fooled.
Yeah.
But what I mean about this cybersecurity is Kali Linux is a really upper intermediate or pre-advanced thing in cybersecurity. It's a kind of Debian form, and it can be used for man-in-the-middle attacks. There are different layers of it, but I'm not going to mention today because I don't have time. And after man-in-the-middle attack, in terms of email communication, as I said, we have so limited time, maybe afterwards, okay? In terms of email communication, you have to use encrypted email services. Do you know what is PGP? It's kind of really advanced thing. Then I'm going to send to you a tutorial about how to create a PGP protocol for your account. PGP is, assume that I write hello to you through email. It is 5 characters, right? PGP turns this hello into 10,000 characters, which is almost impossible for governments to decode and understand that I'm writing hello. So it's going to take a lot of time if we establish PGP on your computers one by one. But if I were you, I would definitely have a PGP and public key for my PGP, because sometimes there are some delicate sources who would like to leak information from governmental sources, from private companies, and they want to find some anonymized communication channel. So if you have a public key, they can securely send to you some delicate information about the things that you need, okay? I'm gonna send the tutorial because yeah, we have a really limited time. This workshop should have like 6 or 7 hours, I guess. So, it's so, most of the time, subjects of the emails can be easily read. I'm gonna come to your question, but give me a moment. And many trackers can intercept your attachments. Many email providers can track your location, so do the hackers or people who are tracing you. And there are some actions that you can take in your email communication. As I said, strong authentication through passwords and two-step verification, using trustworthy email provider. For instance, you can use riseup.net. It is provided for activists. You can use commercial alternatives like protonmail.com, which automatically encrypts your information. You can use PGP like email accuracy techniques. You can use some verifying keys. You can email from Tails, this USB-driven operation system I mentioned. And you can use anonymous email address that cannot be related to you, but it is so hard because today most of the email services want you to use your telephone number or any other email, reference email. It is so hard to track such things. There were 2 questions I will take, okay. Yeah, gentleman and lady. Lady first, gentleman, no, yeah.
So that's all about like the applications or the websites that has like back to the password thing. So that's for the things that require the password. But for WhatsApp, for example,
yeah.
So 2 weeks ago, my friend got she got her WhatsApp hacked somehow, and some people say that there are some applications that they can hack WhatsApp. And with only having your phone number. So, and it's all about, I don't know, it's rumors or whatever. So, but for WhatsApp, we don't have a password for it.
It's
so
almost impossible to hack WhatsApp normally. But
yeah.
If you are using, for instance, too many emoji applications in your phones, too many applications that can have access to the chat applications that you use, especially ones based on your keyboard on computer, it is easy to track communication. And also, you know, WhatsApp belongs to Facebook. And if you are writing about, you think that you are going to buy a bicycle in WhatsApp, Facebook shows you bicycle advertisements. So you shouldn't trust in WhatsApp that much. That's why Signal. Do you know Signal? How many of you use Signal? I think you should all. You should all use Signal. It is like compulsory thing that you should use. And gentleman over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
أنا أنظر إلى الموضوع يمكن من خلال نظرة أخرى. أنا عندما يعني أحصن نفسي عندما أحصن نفسي باستخدام هذه الأدوات، نعم قد أكون أنا في مرمى المقرصنين. لماذا هكر فلان؟ لماذا حصن نفسه فلان ولم يفعل آخر؟ فأنا بهذه الحالة أضع نفسي في مرمى، وهذا الموضوع يعني كنا نشاهده كثيرا عند التصفح المخفي وما شابه ذلك. فهذا يضعنا في بؤرة الاستهداف.
First of all, hackers wouldn't be that much interested in a personal human being that works for his privacy, personal privacy. That would be governments or pro-government hackers, probably. I can get your concerns about that. If you're a journalist, if you're a non-governmental organization activist, yeah, it's probability. But nobody is going to know that you are using them because they are all HTTPS protocols. They are protocols that are hidden in your computer. If they don't have physical access to your computer, or if they cannot see your screen all the time, probably they won't even be aware what these softwares are. And the other thing is, if Bill Gates is securing everything he has, if Mark Zuckerberg is securing everything he has, uses every kind of cybersecurity software, why you shouldn't? I think that hackers have some more important things than hacking our accounts. I think governments should be our main motive, and governments, in the end, if they want, they can accuse you of anything. They target you anyway. I think that what you should be concerned about must be whether hackers are going to attack you or not, because it is harder for hackers to attack you than attacking a regular person. Why should they bother hacking you? Why should they bother trying to steal information from you? Some hackers, I know, they do it just for fun. They do it just for showing how credible or how good they are, but it is really rare. And the things that I show, you don't have to use all of them. Just use the ones that you want. It is not going to expose you. But I also know that governments, in Turkey, some applications are banned. People who use these applications are in prison right now. So governments use that. Or they use the DNS spoofing. There are articles in the newspapers every day saying that people who use this VPN service are terrorists. I saw this kind of things. I think these are the things that you should be concerned about. That's why you should try to use more common choices, like Privacy Badger, add-ons, the Onion router, it's a kind of browser that completely works on encryption of your data or your communication to the websites. So we have limited time, but I would like you to have some alternatives. So Google Hangouts and Skype, we all use them, right? So here is an alternative, meet.jit.c. It is available in Android, iPhone, and your practical PCs, or Mac computers, or Linux. All you have to have is either a Firefox or Google for it, if you are connecting from PC. It encrypts audio and video and text of all the communication. So don't use Skype if you are a journalist. Don't use Google Hangouts if you are a journalist. Use Meet.jitsi. It is a wonderful alternative. It enables screen sharing. It enables note-taking and many other features. So, can you really get rid of your sensitive files? It is hard. As I said, the best way of destroying files is just destroying the drive that has the files itself. Use your microwave for killing your USB or your hard drive. Just burn it. If you are working on some file that you stored on a USB. But if not, you can use some encryption technologies that I will also send some YouTube trailers about, because each of you have different computers. And each of you work on different systems. And some of you have Google accounts, some of you have Facebook accounts. I really wish that if there was a non-governmental organization agency which is helping all journalists worldwide to secure their computers one by one. But we don't have. We can just suggest people to do some stuff. So for mobile phones, you can factory reset your phone if you feel under risk. But be sure that you have removed everything from cloud from your cloud first. If they are on cloud, it doesn't mean anything. For instance, if you are under a suspicious situation and you feel that government can arrest you in the morning, what you should do? Run, yeah. It's impossible to run because they're possibly tracking you physically as well. They're just waiting for the time. So you arrive to your apartment, and first of all, you make a risk assessment. Which files would you like to protect? Do you have an external hard drive? Just burn it. And do you have some files that you would like to keep in physical space? It's almost impossible. You can encrypt your hard drives. There are too many technologies for that. But in the end, as much encryption technologies there are, as much decryption technologies are there for governments as well. So when there is a kind of possibility of physical intervention to your sources, I would definitely recommend you to destroy them in physical way. So you can also use, if you feel that they are not worth burying, or if you can be kind of, your financial situation might be bad, you can take some risks, and you can use these 3 tools in order to erase and encrypt the files that you have deleted. I know that it is easier and more economic, yeah, but it's a way. So I mentioned Tails, and I mentioned Kali Linux. Actually, Kali Linux is always appearing in this Mr. Robot thing, and some other TV series about hacking. Actually, I have a Kali Linux USB at home. I always use just in order to make fun. It is used not only by hackers, but also people who are testing security levels of websites, passwords, and a lot of stuff. So having a Kali Linux is not going to make you a hacker, but it will enable you to access to some of the hackers' tools, right? So you may use dozens of hacking codes easily with Kali Linux. So Tor browser. How many of you have ever used Tor browser? Yeah, that's like, what is your password, right? I think that you should always Tor browser, especially while you are for instance, creating a file, or you are creating a document or article on some controversial subject, a terrorist organization, a group of dissidents. You have to use Tor browser. For instance, in my country, Tor browser is blocked. Protocols that you use, that other countries use for entering Tor browser, are blocked in Turkey. But Tor still enables some alternative routes for us, alternative protocols for us. The Onion router encrypts all the information, encrypts your data, encrypts your activities, so it doesn't enable people or companies to know who you are. So if you would like to open a Twitter or Facebook account which is relatively more secure or anonymized, of course they do a lot of things to avoid it, but you can use Tor. And also, for instance, if you are an activist who are getting some information from anarchist forums, dissidents forums, and you wouldn't like to be surveyed by the government all the time, you would like to be socially attached to these groups through digital tracking, you should also use Tor. I don't know. It's possible. But Tor is not blocked. You can still use Tor. Some protocols of Tor are blocked. So I think that we are over, because I don't want to do over my time. In terms of Android versus iPhone, I have no specific choice. It is both bad. You can have a Debian mobile operation system for yourself. And that might be the resolution. So I think that today we are done. I wish that we had more and more time to discuss and practice every other thing that we mentioned today. But I am going to finish with 5 things, and I take the question from her. First of all, if you are working on delicate files, you can have Tails or this kind of alternative booting option, a USB that you can use as operation system with you. The second thing, on your regular activities, use browsers like Tor or Firefox, but with the add-ons that I suggested, like Privacy Badger, Ghostery, Ad blocker, HTTPS everywhere, okay? The third thing, for your computers, for your mobile phones, sorry, you can download DuckDuckGo. It is a browser and a search engine at the same time. It enables you to surf securely. There is another alternative for your mobile phones, which is called Brave. It is also providing encrypted communication. I know that most of them don't provide complete security, but at least they are less commercial and less surveying than Google. And finally, you should all have two-factor authentication in your phones. There is no excuse of being hacked by classical phishing attacks if you're a journalist, because all your sources are under threat if you do something like that, okay? So my email address is myname.surname@uit.no. If you have some specific questions, you can ask me. And if you have some delicate questions about cybersecurity and you don't want to send it to a corporate university account, my other email is sarphan@myname@riseup.net. You can reach me through this secure protocol as well. Thank you for listening. I will continue.